There's a storm brewing in Nigeria's political and judicial landscape right now, and at the center of it is Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. His case has been a hot topic for a while, not only because of its political nature, but also due to the legal questions it raises. Today, we're diving deep into what's going on and why it matters, not just for Kanu, but for the entire country. I'll walk you through the key details and what could happen next. So, here's the deal. Nnamdi Kanu's legal battle is far from over. Recently, his defense team has made a significant statement in court. They've warned Judge James Omotosho that if he plans on delivering his ruling without hearing the motion to arrest judgment, it would be a grave injustice. This motion, which is essentially a request to stop or delay the judgment, has to be addressed first, they argue. The defense says there are serious issues with the legal foundations of the case that need to be resolved before any final decision is made. What does that mean though? It's simple but important. The defense is challenging the validity of the law under which Kanu is being tried. They claim the law that was used against him is outdated, it's no longer applicable, and that could mean his whole trial should never have happened. The defense believes that if the judge moves forward without addressing these concerns, they're risking a miscarriage of justice. This is about making sure that Kanu's constitutional rights are respected. It's a high-stakes situation. On the one hand, you have Kanu and his defense team fighting for what they believe is a fair trial. They argue that due process has been overlooked. On the other hand, the government and many others feel like the case should just be wrapped up, as the charges against Kanu are serious and have far-reaching implications. He's been accused of promoting secession and inciting violence. These are not light charges, and there's no doubt that this case is not just a legal issue, but a deeply political one. Now, let's break it down a bit more. Kanu has been in detention for quite some time, and his trial has been dragging on. The charges against him are serious, and they stem from his calls for the secession of the southeastern part of Nigeria, a region predominantly inhabited by the Igbo people. His calls for Biafra's independence have been met with fierce opposition from the Nigerian government, which views them as a threat to national unity. This has turned his trial into a flashpoint for wider issues of regional autonomy, federalism, and security. What's happening in court right now is that Kanu's lawyers are insisting that certain legal processes have not been followed correctly. They argue that the laws being used to prosecute Kanu were either repealed or amended long before his arrest. And because of this, they believe the trial should be halted until the motion they filed is properly heard. They want the court to consider whether or not the law under which Kanu is being tried even applies in the first place. But the clock is ticking. On November 20, 2025, the court is expected to deliver its judgment. If that judgment goes forward without considering the motion, it would mean that the defense will likely file for an appeal. If that happens, we could see another round of legal battles that could stretch out even longer. And trust me, this case has already been going on for years. This is where it gets interesting. If the court rules in favor of the defense, it would send a strong message about the importance of respecting legal procedures, no matter who the defendant is. But if the court rules against the defense, many people will view it as a sign that the judicial system is under pressure to deliver a verdict, regardless of whether or not all procedural issues have been addressed. Why is this case so important to Nigerians? Well, it goes beyond just Kanu himself. The case has become a symbol of how the government and the judiciary handle dissent. It's about how far the government is willing to go to maintain national unity and how much room it's willing to give for regional voices and grievances. This trial, more than any other, has the potential to set a precedent for how future cases involving secessionist movements and political dissent are handled. At the same time, the way this case plays out will shape the relationship between the judiciary and the executive in Nigeria. If the courts decide to push through a judgment despite the motions and arguments from Kanu's team, it could be seen as the judiciary bowing to political pressure. But if the court insists on following due process and hearing all motions first, it could strengthen the credibility of the justice system. The motion to arrest judgment is not just a procedural issue, It's a legal tactic, one that seeks to buy time for the defense to make its case, and there's a lot riding on it. Kanu's team is arguing that if the judgment is delivered without considering the motion, the entire trial could be seen as fundamentally flawed. And here's where we get into the bigger picture. This case isn't just about one man. It's about the broader political and social landscape in Nigeria. Kanu's supporters see him as a symbol of resistance against the government they believe doesn't represent their interests. On the flip side, there are many who see him as a troublemaker, someone who has stirred up unnecessary tension and violence. And then, of course, you have the legal and judicial perspectives, where it's not about political allegiance, but about the application of the law and the protection of individual rights. So, what happens next? The court will have to decide whether to move forward with this judgment or consider the defense's motion first. If the motion is granted, we could see a delay, and that could mean more waiting for Kanu and his supporters. But if the court pushes ahead and delivers judgment on November 20th, we're looking at another set of legal battles that could go all the way to the appeals court. Now, let's take a step back and think about the implications of all this. How does this case affect Nigeria's legal system? It's a reminder that the rule of law is paramount, even when the political stakes are high. A fair trial is a right that every citizen is entitled to, and if we start bending the rules for certain people or cases, it can lead to a breakdown in trust between the people and the government. And that's something we can't afford. Not now. Not ever. So now let's get into the broader impact of this case, particularly from the perspective of public trust in the judiciary. Trust in the legal system is something that takes years to build, but can be shattered in an instant. The way the court handles this case will speak volumes about how much Nigerians believe that the judicial system is fair, transparent, and truly independent. If the court goes ahead with the judgment without hearing the defense's motion, it may feel to many like the judicial system is compromised. It's one thing to convict someone for breaking the law, but it's another thing to do it without respecting the process. The thing about these kinds of cases is that they don't just affect the individual at the center of it all, it affects everyone watching. In this case, the tension is especially high because of the political undertones. If Kanu is convicted, many people in his region, the Southeast, will see it as a symbol of oppression. And if he's acquitted or given some sort of leniency, those who oppose him will see it as a dangerous message that promotes separatism. This isn't just a court case. It's a battle for the soul of the country. Think about the situation on the ground. Kanu's supporters see him as a hero. To them, he represents a fight for the rights of the Igbo people, who they feel have been marginalized by successive Nigerian governments. They see the trial as political, as an attempt to silence a voice that challenges the status quo. And then you have the government's perspective. The government wants to maintain national unity, and they view Kanu's calls for Biafra as a direct threat to that unity. It's a delicate balancing act, and the outcome of this trial could set a dangerous precedent, one that could either give more legitimacy to calls for secession or reinforce the government's power over dissent. In the midst of all this, the role of the judiciary becomes even more crucial. The courts must remain impartial. The judges have to apply the law, not based on political considerations, but based on the facts presented and the legal principles at play. If the courts become seen as tools for political agendas, the very foundation of democracy starts to erode. The law must be a shield for the people, not a weapon of the powerful. The way this case unfolds could have far-reaching consequences for Nigeria's democracy. And let's not forget the international aspect of this case. The world is watching how Nigeria handles this. With Kanu being such a high-profile figure, his trial has drawn attention from human rights organizations and international media. If Nigeria is seen to be treating him unfairly, it could damage the country's reputation on the global stage. International pressure could influence the outcome of the trial or even the way the Nigerian government decides to approach it. The image of a fair and just Nigeria matters, not only for the citizens but for how the country is viewed abroad. The defense's argument isn't just a legal one. It's about protecting the integrity of the justice system. They've said that if the motion to arrest judgment is ignored, the whole process could be viewed as a sham, and they're right. The legal system must be above reproach. If the process isn't followed properly, it undermines the very idea of justice. It's not just about whether Kanu is guilty or innocent. It's about ensuring that everyone, no matter who they are, gets a fair trial. This case has become a symbol of what's at stake in Nigeria, whether the country's legal system will serve the people or whether it will be bent to serve those in power. In the meantime, Nigerians and the international community will continue to wait. The court's decision on November 20th will be crucial, not just for Kanu, but for the future of the country's judicial system. Will they uphold the principles of fairness, or will they give in to political pressure? It's a tough question, but one that we'll all have to reckon with in the days to come. If you're wondering why this case matters to you, whether you're in Nigeria or not, it's because the principles at stake here, fairness, justice, the rule of law, affect everyone. When you see a high-profile case like this, where the law is potentially being bent, it raises questions about how we all expect the law to be applied in our own lives. Should the rich and powerful get different treatment than the rest of us? Should political affiliations determine the outcome of a legal case? These are questions that go beyond Kanu. They touch on the heart of what it means to have a fair and just society. So, we wait for the judgment. November 20th is the date to watch. And the question remains, will the court respect the legal process, or will it cave to the political pressures? Only time will tell. As always, if you enjoyed this breakdown, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more updates like this. You don't want to miss what happens next, and trust me, I'll keep you in the loop. Until then, stay tuned, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.